What's poppin', y'all? We back at it. I am your host, Shy Ill, with another Surviving El Chapo reaction. Today we doing The Connect, which is Johnny Mitchell, who does a lot of Cartel content. A couple of days ago on his show, he had Charlie Webster. If y'all don't remember, Charlie Webster is the journalist and executive producer along with 50 Cent for Surviving El Chapo, and he's interviewing her about the Surviving El Chapo series. If you have yet to hit the subscribe button, please do. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell. Let's move this channel forward. Let's get it.
And all of a sudden Pete wasn't there. So Pete went on his own, and they're like, where's Pete? So they're all kind of phoning around going, oh, where's Pete gone? And they're like, Chapo's got him.
Today's guest is Charlie Webster, the host of the hit podcast series Surviving El Chapo, which she co-created with 50 Cent. Surviving El Chapo is about the Flores brothers, the twins from Chicago who ended up becoming Chapo's main North American distributors in the mid-2000s. They were the ones who decided to become informants and were the key witnesses in the trial that put Chapo away for life. This is a fascinating story. She spent years interviewing the brothers for this podcast series, and she has insight that nobody else has.
I'd like to know how long that whole process was from the beginning of them signing the deal to make the Surviving El Chapo podcast with 50 Cent and Charlie. Like how long that process was. How many years did they? Because I was under the impression that they made the deal. They eventually got everybody together at one time, maybe over a weekend or something, and they shot all of that and recorded all of that. Evidently, that's the way he's saying it. Evidently, that ain't what happened. Evidently, there was years involved and time involved in the process, more time than I'd imagined.
Access to, and she's here today. Without further ado, I give you Charlie Webster of the Surviving El Chapo series, right here on The Connect with Johnny Mitchell.
But the $1 million question is what you asked. It's the question is, was it worth it? Was it worth it?
That's a big question. That question is often asked we have this discussion in the comments. If you scroll through the comments on our different Surviving El Chapo shows, you'll see we have that conversation all the time. Was it worth it? At the end of the day, our answer don't matter. It's their answer that matters. And the reality is it's already happened, so what's the answer worth anymore? There's a lot of loss involved in this story. There's a lot of anguish, a lot of pain, a lot of people lost, a lot of time lost. But that question often comes up, was it worth it? My question is, does it even matter anymore?
First of all, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I want to know, first of all, how a beautiful Australian woman falls into a project like this.
Well, can I just correct you? Because I'm not Australian.
Sure.
I'm English.
I was 50-50.
So wait, swing early and miss?
I'm English.
I was 50-50.
And
this interview is purely editorial and is not meant to glorify or encourage illegal behavior of any kind. The purpose is to tell real life stories, not give advice. I mean, do I have to put one of those down at the bottom of all of our Cartel content in order to have YouTube not demonetize me? Like, I don't think I'm here glorifying anything. So maybe I need one of these cockamamie disclaimers on my videos so that they leave me alone. We'll see. I'm gonna figure it out.
I thought I heard an error, like a narrow.
No, he failed already. She's definitely not Australian.
When I was listening to the episode yesterday.
And that seems to be sometimes the problem in America. Is people think, oh, well, she's got a different accent.
But look
Australian, English,
Sure,
are they
I
just
know.
the same?
Oh, yeah, it's a problem
So,
in America.
You come to a...
All right, lady, can you tell me the difference between a Mexican, a Puerto Rican, a Colombian, and a Venezuelan? Probably not. So I'd keep your judgment to yourself.
America fulfills your dreams, and you get asked ignorant questions.
Maybe not, because maybe I had my dreams filled in England, which is why I then got offered a job in America.
Did you get this project?
This is already a combative scenario here. She done checked him a record amount of times in a couple of seconds.
Did you get this project while you were in England?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
So
wow. You're kidding
I'm
me.
English,
He's 0-2.
and I'd filled my dreams in England.
Are you going to stay here, or are you going to go back? What do you think? Do you like it here enough?
$1 million question. Well,
She don't seem like she likes it.
Both countries are in trouble.
both countries are interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm really proud to be from England, not Australia.
Sorry.
Although there's nothing wrong with Australia or Australians.
Australians are bad at Brits.
I don't know. LA is a really interesting place. I think culturally, I mean, and taking this conversation down a totally different route, but I think culturally, you wouldn't believe how different Brits and Americans are.
Yeah.
Like, we might think we speak the same language, but I'm not even sure we do sometimes.
Well, you guys are much more proper.
I think she's taking subtle, dry wit English shots at us.
You guys are much more
I think that's a perception of America.
Yeah,
that's just a perception, right? Because that's just stereotypical. Because I could just say, I'm not going to say anything because this is an American audience.
Well, no.
Maybe so, like, yeah, but you could say the same. You know, you could say English are like more reserved and more proper, and you could say Americans are loud, and they're both stereotypes, right?
We absolutely are. I think because my family is all from England and they moved to Canada, so that's where we come from.
But you thought I was Australian.
Right. I don't care. So
I might just throw the whole episode just dig you for that.
So yeah.
It seems like you already are. It seems like you're just digging that dude for the rest of the show about this Australia shit. But it is what it is. He swung twice, he missed twice, and she's on it.
So, English people have sarcasm.
For sure, but you guys are passive aggressive. And you give that to the Canadians. That comes from the crown. That's a fact.
I don't think we're passive aggressive. I think we're straight talking.
Oh yeah. No. You guys bottle it up. You're nice and proper, but then at the same time you'll be colonizing, a diamond mine in Africa. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Or you'll be doing some naughty things to the Indians. So
I won't say anything about what America did.
No. But our time's coming too. Which is a fact. You know what I mean? But how did you get the subject?
What happened to this conversation? Where did this conversation?
Drugs and crime. Is this always been a passion of yours? Or, how did you meet 50 Cent? How did you meet the Flores Twins? I mean, because we have connections doing this show, but not like, getting a hold of these cats.
So, I mean, I'm a journalist. So I think first and foremost, to me, I'm interested in various different topics. And I think it's not necessarily that, I have my own, it was very interesting to do this project because I have my own opinion and my own family experience to do with drugs, which I had, I did talk to the Flores twins about in a private conversation and a little bit that we record.
I don't even remember what it was. Something like somebody in their family died over drugs or something.
Because I think I challenged them on their view, which we can get into about the fact.
I heard her say the same thing on the Dirty Money podcast. The same thing, the same talking point she's about to add right now.
Kill anyone, and I was like,
that they didn't kill anyone. Something that we've been talking about since the beginning of the Surviving El Chapo series is, it's all played as if they played the game squeaky clean and they managed to get away without any blood on their hands. We've all had this conversation over and over. Some of us believe it, some of us don't. That's what she's talking about now.
I think I challenged them on their view, which we can get into, about the fact that, they didn't kill anyone. And I was like, well, indirectly you did. And it was really interesting, this thing called cognitive dissonance, which you might be familiar about maybe through your own past, where it's like you can convince yourself that it's not as bad as what you're actually doing. And I think what really interests me, and I'll explain how, I will answer your questions, but what really interests me is not necessarily drugs or crime, but human behavior, which then feeds into both of those things anyway, ultimately, whether you look at it from drug dealing or whether you look at it from actually consuming drugs or how you end up in those situations. A lot of it is from your past, from childhood, trauma, difficulties, and, human behavior, or fall into those things. Like, I'm not from a privileged background. I'm from a working class background in England.
So, okay, check this
Australia.
out. Check this out. And that's where the mistake comes from, because you don't have a London accent. So
no, I don't. I'm from the north.
Drugs. You're from the north. You sound like top boy.
So that's why you thought I was Australian.
That's right. I swear to God. That's to me, that's closer to Australia.
Yeah, I wouldn't have caught it. But I also wouldn't have made that mistake. I wouldn't have, if I wasn't 100% sure, I wouldn't have said it. I wouldn't have mentioned it.
Australian. But have you seen Top Boy?
Of course I am.
Salt Boy,
Great
yeah, you
show.
remind me of the cats in Birmingham,
Great acting.
up there in...
Peaky Blinders, maybe.
Exactly.
Bit of like, well, I'm not from Birmingham, but I'm from even further up.
Wow, what's the town called?
Well, I'm from Yorkshire, which is the
Yorkshire,
county, and
yeah.
the city I'm from is called Sheffield.
Yeah, and
which
that's...
was like known for like steel and industry. It's a bit like the equivalent of like a Pittsburgh over
Buffalo,
here.
Pittsburgh, Detroit.
Yeah. So like
that.
mining,
Boring
town,
Landia.
steel.
And is
city.
that all gone? Has that industry all been exported like the way in America?
Who gives a shit?
Unemployment.
Yeah. And that breeds...
Yeah, the weather doesn't help.
Nobody
it's not
cares.
got nice weather.
Can I tell you my misgivings? This is...
Sure, why not?
I immediately, when your team reached out wanting to have you on, I immediately got a visceral reaction as a former drug dealer. Because the Flores Twins...
Why?
Because the Flores Twins are rats at the end of the day.
Oh, I disagree. Which we can talk about.
That's what we're going to do. So
what was your visceral reaction?
Sickening. I was sickened because I lost...
Now here's my question. I don't know who he's interviewed before or who he talks about or what he talks about. I just hope he holds the same standard to everybody. You know what I'm saying? That was the initial conversation we had too. You know what I'm saying? And it's a conversation we're going to continue to have. What constitutes a rat? It's a conversation that's never going to go away. So has Johnny Mitchell talked to Sammy the Bull? Because Sammy the Bull was a rat too. Has Johnny Mitchell covered Alpo? Alpo was a rat. You would think having a visceral reaction, like, well, who do you think you're going to be talking to? If you're covering this, what do you think? You just constantly talking to stand-up guys? Do you even know that ratting and snitching and cooperating is all weaponized in Mexico? And that's how they play the game? That's how a lot of people play the game? Has he covered Whitey Bulger? Whitey Bulger was an informant. There's a few outliers. You got your John Gotti's out there that didn't say a word. But if you're having a visceral reaction, then you're in the wrong business. Yeah. Do I agree with ratting? Do I agree with snitching? Do I agree with cooperating? No. I agree with don't get in the fucking game if this is not what you're going to do. You know what I'm saying? All the way out. If that's not the team you're going to be on, I don't expect nobody to hold themselves to that. And I don't put myself in a position to have to challenge my own convictions on that. So if he's worried about interviewing, if he had a visceral reaction because he's worried about interviewing Charlie Webster because it's the story about two guys that cooperated, then I don't even know what you're talking about because it's all kind of dudes that's cooperating. There's a bunch of people that take the life of babies and old people and people that can't defend themselves. You know what I'm saying? There's all kind of animals. You got to have a visceral reaction about that too. But if you're worried about doing an interview because somebody's a rat, or you perceive them to be a rat, or whatever the case may be, then I don't know who you're going to end up talking to. Nobody, really.
I lost a small part of my life to rats, to people that were in the game.
All right, see, there you go. That's somebody that has a personal experience with somebody ratting him out. Yeah, I can't say it's disingenuous for him to have a visceral feeling. He's been affected by rats. Same with Boosie. Boosie talks the way he talks about rats because a rat put him on death row as far as he was concerned. Was he guilty? It's up to you to decide. Not really. It's up to the courts to decide, and they decided. The court of public opinion, it is what it is. It's the internet. Say what you want. Say what you may. Will it change things? No. You can call a rat a million times. It's not going to change what happened. All right, we got the rat part. Now what?
A small part of my life to rats, to people that were in the game, selling drugs. It was all good until they got caught, and they couldn't handle it, so they felt like they had to take me down. Now, that's on a real reduced scale. I get that.
But it wasn't them. Like, I'd love to get in this conversation with you. Because, so my thought on that is, well, they weren't to blame because you lost part of your life because of your own actions. So isn't it taking responsibility for what you did?
Yes, of course I have to. Everybody, doesn't matter what kind of injustice is done to somebody, you still have to take responsibility for it. I understand that. But my point is the Flores twins made... untold tens and tens of millions of dollars thanks to cartels in Mexico.
It was even more than that.
Okay, great.
Hundreds.
They probably profited. I mean, they made them billions, but they probably profited hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
We don't know if the government got all that money. Just because they told you, hey, we don't have any more of it. They could own property all over Mexico. They could have money buried. I don't care what they say.
Okay.
And look, it all works out for them. They get to go take everybody else down.
I don't think it really does.
Okay, so that's okay, right.
And that's not.
So it's clear beyond Australia and beyond her starting her career in England, there's a contentious situation going on here. This should be interesting. Let's see how this goes down.
The story.
That's my surface.
And that's what's so fascinating about this show,
Right,
because
right.
going to your original question, and I want to hear more about, because I'd love to talk about cooperation,
Yeah.
because I don't think it's what people think it is, and I don't think it's even what you think it is if you have a perception that it's about ratting.
Yeah.
Because one of the things they say about cooperation is when you're in prison, you either there's two prisoners, you either cooperate or you wish you'd cooperated.
Right, that's
and
what they
there's
say.
two type of prisoners.
For sure.
But just going back to what you said, that isn't the story, and that's what makes this so fascinating, because when I started to talk to the Flores Twins, I spent a lot of time to get to know them as people. So, and you know, I approach it as a journalist, so I'm not here being you know, being like, oh.
Clarice, you Clarice, huh? You letting Hannibal Lecter sweet talk you? I don't know. It sounds like you there discussing your friends. You know what I'm saying? Defending your friends to the guy that has an opposing idea of what went down. We shall see.
Like so empathetic, where I'm just one-sided.
Right.
But for me to approach it as like a drug cartel story is one-sided, and it's actually not telling the truth of this story. So I spent 6 months at least getting to know the Flores Twins and the family. And
look, and that's where I agree with her on this. And since the beginning of this series, I didn't make it about snitch. Okay, we know they snitched. We know they cooperated. What's the rest of the story? I want to know the rest of the story. What happened? And there's many layers to the story. It wasn't until I got into the Surviving El Chapo podcast and started covering it, you know, that I learned that they were groomed from, you know, basically birth to hustle. These are things I didn't know. There's layers to this story. The cooperating, the snitching, the ratting, that's one part of the story. Cool. To all you people out there, nobody's asking you to change your mind on whether they snitched, they didn't snitch, on whether it was justified or not. It's cool. They cooperated. Now that that's out the way, let's deal with the rest of the story. You got to be able to see the forest through the trees.
Before I even pressed record, so I could understand what this story was.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's lazy if I'd have just done a drug cartel in your words, story.
Right.
Because that's not the story at all. So you need to listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
Surviving El Chapo.
That's another thing. Has he listened to the podcast? She just kind of checked him on it. You got to at least know what you're talking about, because then it turns into you just asking her questions about everything they talked about on the podcast, when you could be getting it from the horse's mouth.
I just might after this.
You just might. So if he shut everything down and he didn't listen to the Surviving El Chapo podcast because they ratted, then he's coming here with none of the information he needs to have this conversation he's trying to have. So I don't get that part. You got such a big channel. Least you could do is go pay attention and listen to what's happening and know what's happening before you have the conversation. Because if that's the case, you can't watch movies, Johnny Mitchell, because you're going to get a visceral reaction and you're not going to be able to watch the movie. You can't watch Goodfellas, Henry Hill. You can't watch Gotti, Sammy the Bull. You can't watch American Gangster. You can't watch none of these movies that have popular snitches in them. You'll have a visceral reaction. So if you're having these visceral reactions, then maybe you shouldn't cover this.
And I think understanding even what cooperation is, like for example, with El Chapo, there's no way the government would have been able to take El Chapo down without cooperation. You know, you might already know, but with complex cases like that, it's not about law enforcement, it's about cooperators, because they can't understand or get the insight of really what's happening by, you know, what they normally do by wiretaps or things like that, unless they've got cooperation and insight. But also it's about choices, right? And it's about family, and it's about the choices you make. So you think that what the Flores, I'm intrigued, do you think that the Flores twins should have carried on and become Chapo? Is that better than deciding to cooperate?
This is my take.
That was my answer. My answer is, I mean, what you going to do? Both cartels are threatening your life. You got to figure something out. Cool, then you got all that money, then raise you a war and become the man. because this is the life you chose. You know what I'm saying? That would have been my answer. That's the short answer, though. Is it the right answer? I don't know. No. Is it ignorant? Maybe. Maybe I would have hit a wall. Maybe I would have, got off myself and said war. But I want to see what he got to say.
Game.
Deciding to cooperate.
This is my take. The entire game is just a byproduct of the misery that consumes poor countries and parts of poor countries like the north of England or Detroit, Michigan, or Sinaloa, Mexico. It's just it's a byproduct of the need to survive, and drug users. There's something about modern society that makes people want to alter their state of mind. It's all not very good. It is what it is, and the game is bad. But do I celebrate people that made a choice and made hundreds of millions of dollars, and then they decided, you know what, I want out? Like, is that something that should be...
Is hearing them out, is hearing the story, celebrating them? Is when you watch Goodfellas, do you feel like you celebrating Henry Hill, or are you just being entertained by a film, watching a movie, something that really happened? And snitches are reality. They're part of the movie. You know what I'm saying? Just like anybody else is part of a movie. So you telling me that we're celebrating Henry Hill by watching Goodfellas? We're celebrating Frank Lucas by watching American Gangster? That's the part that I don't understand. Especially when you're somebody that covers cartel. You cover cartel content. You know what I'm saying? You cover cartel content. That comes with it.
Lauded. You know what I mean? Is that something... And, I see that 50 Cent produced this for Lionsgate sound.
Well, I produced it with 50 Cent.
Right. But I'm saying 50, it's just...
She took another shot at him. He tried to leave her out of the production credit. She took another shot at him. She is not digging Johnny Mitchell.
Well, I produced it with 50 Cent.
Right. But I'm saying 50, it's so funny. 50 was a big time drug dealer in his day. He would abhor celebration of... Again,
50 understands the big picture. 50 understands that it's part of the game. 50's not that hustler right now. 50's making film and doing music. Is he still who he is fundamentally as a human? Yeah. But he just understands the gears and how they click together and how they work. He gets the big picture. He's not going to have a visceral, emotional reaction and blow the bag or blow the opportunity to create something. No, he's going to explore all of it and watch all of it. So I don't understand how ignoring the problem or ignoring that it ever existed or that it happened somehow makes things better and less visceral for Buddy.
It's not celebration, it's telling a story. That's storytelling.
I agree with that.
Just made a show called Scamando, which went viral worldwide. It was #1 in 6 countries. And it was about a woman who faked cancer. I'm not celebrating her. Mm-hmm. I'm telling her story, and it actually gave a lot of justice to a lot of people.
I agree with that. You know what I'm saying? Okay, a lady that faked cancer, she's not celebrating her, she's telling her story. That's who we tell the stories of. Not many of the valiant get their story told. Not many of the good people who live everyday lives quietly and do all the right things and just take care of their family, keep their head down, live their life. They don't get stories told about them. We get the Scarfaces. We get the Godfathers, the Vito Andolinis and the Michael Corleones. You know what I'm saying? We get these stories. That's our culture. She can say what she wants about England or the United States or whatever, but all of us is watching horror movies, gangster movies, violent movies. This is what we do as a people. So I'm not understanding the whole visceral reaction. Are we celebrating? Now, if you sitting there saying, oh, man, you celebrating. You know what I'm saying? You're like, yeah, the Flores Twins, boy, listen, kids, that's what you should do. You know what I'm saying? Look, you want to drive the car? Then you got to have the balls to go all the way and make it all the way to Chapolandia. You know what I'm saying? That's glorifying. Oh, man, look at that. No, that Bentley come with consequences. The chains come with consequences. The money came with consequences. That's just a story being told. We're not glorifying nothing. That's what I don't understand about YouTube. That we're sitting here telling stories and reacting to stories being told and giving our perspective and our opinion. And they're flagging it for what reason? Why? I'm not being blatantly violent. I'm not using crazy words every 3 seconds. I see all of that out there. That gets monetized quick. That gets 1 million views. If I was being silly right now, acting a fool, I'd be the biggest YouTuber in the game. It's not how this works. So keep your visceral reaction. We're not celebrating nothing, man. We telling stories.
Fully been betrayed by people like her.
Right.
So storytelling isn't about lauding
Right.
or anything. You,
Okay.
as a storyteller, which is what I do, like my job and as a journalist is to give you, it's fascinating. You can decide as a viewer, as a listener, what you think. But my job, if I do it your way round, that is judgment.
Yeah.
That is not telling a story. So what Surviving El Chapo is
she's not being if she says, I can't talk to them because these dudes cooperated because she got some kind of visceral reaction, she's not being an impartial journalist. She's not riding it up the middle and just saying what she got to say to get the rest of the story out. You know, a lot of being a journalist is playing devil's advocate. If you're going to play devil's advocate, you also have to pay attention to the things that you may or may not agree with fundamentally. You can't just, I'm going against. No, you got to listen to what the person's saying. You got to understand why their perspective is the way that their perspective is. Instead of just saying, nah, I got a strong line. We're not talking about this, that, the other. No, that's not how this works.
You know, the Flores Twins spoke for the very first time. I spent a lot of time with the family to get to know them. And then I told their story. Like, it's not for me to decide what their story is.
Right.
That's their story.
Right.
But then to go underneath the nuance of that story, why did they make those decisions? You know, because to your point, you're going on about $100 million that they were making. So they were only in their 20s, right? They were really young.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to me, and I'm intrigued because I thought you would think it's important to understand why people get into these situations.
Yeah, it is.
So,
I'm just trying to maintain my street cred on YouTube.
But are you really? Listen, the hood has everything. The thinkers, the not thinkers, the savages, the not savages, everybody has their thing. Just because you're entertained by something or you entertain something doesn't mean that that's what you are. So if your spine is that wiggly that you're worried about having the conversation with somebody or even listening to the story of somebody because they did some foul shit that's affected you in life, come on, man. We've all had foul shit done to us. We wouldn't watch nothing if that's the case.
My street cred on YouTube. I just want to preface
I'm just like challenge you every second.
Yeah,
So just to finish my point is like, to me, that's important, right? Otherwise, you're just I could come in and judge you, and I don't judge you because, you know, because of your past, right? So, to me, I mean, this is something I question at the end of the series. It's like, can you ever have redemption? Can you ever change? Can you ever? I mean, can the Flores Twins live a normal life and the Flores family? Well, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but their wives. I mean, one wife's going to prison as we're recording. The other wife's going to prison in 2 months' time.
Okay,
There's kids.
Wild. Yeah.
So you're like, hang on a second, you passing that trauma to the kids? Like they tried to change their life, and then so for me, telling the story of why they cooperated, because you know, 100 millions, they were like literally, they could have just become Chapo, right? So they were winning. They weren't arrested and then decided to cooperate. Right?
Which is even worse. I think what they did is even more. If I'm looking at it from a street view, from a criminal view, I'm like, they did something even more.
So it's better to just carry on being a criminal then? Is that more street cred?
It ain't about street cred when you're a criminal. It's about surviving. It's about I'm doing what I do to get money. You know what I'm saying? This is who I am. This is what I chose. It's not like people are staying in the game for street cred. If they would have stood in the game, it wouldn't have been for street cred. It would have been for the same reasons that they cooperated. To save their family and to keep getting, to be able to live. So if they would have decided to go to war and become Chapo, it's for the same reasons, right? Both things were done for the same reason. So it's not like you would stay in the game for clout. You would stay in the game to stay paid, to stay at the top of the top of the terrain. So not for street cred. Rat shit, nah, none of that. Rat. Snitch, 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 snitch. That's cool. That's cool. Me too. Man, I'm not a fan. I'm not going to get into something if I have to bail by, you know, in case of emergency, break glass and rat somebody out. That ain't my business. So I stay out of the business. My business is to react to the story. I want the story. If I'm a screenwriter, my business is to find the story. That's just a part of the story. Just like it's just a part of this podcast. We haven't gotten past that yet.
Is that a good life?
I think when you're a high-level criminal and you get arrested and you're looking at life in prison, that's when you really I can understand a person who could at least look at the considerations, right? Which is the norm, right? Yeah, of course, and it's human nature, and I understand that. But no. Look, But
my point is that they were at the top, right?
Right.
They were winning in every respect. There was no suspicion about them from the cartel, and there was no. I mean, they were fugitives, but the police weren't after them. The feds weren't after them. They were after Chapo, right?
Right.